For 30 years, Americans have played a game with the banks holding all the cards.
Changing the terms, raising interest rates, changing the rules of the game.
Consumers use plastic for 100,000 transactions a minute. It has produced billions in profits and nearly $1 trillion in debt.
Americans simply cannot pay back the level of debt that has grown over the last 30 years.
And the credit card industry even played a hand in the economic meltdown.
We had consumers refinancing their homes to pay off all their credit cards.
Apply now.
And then they went back out and built their credit cards back up.
Now, as credit card losses are piling up, the government is stepping in.
We need to fix the rules, make them tougher, with a simple, clear, single mission to protect consumers.
Why hasn't there been credit card legislation to control some of these abusive practices? Why did it take a near depression?
Lobbying power.
Correspondent Lowell Bergman and the New York Times investigate the battle over the card game.
"20 years ago, credit cards were a stable, profitable part of the banking industry.
Providian was a very profitable business. We make over $180 million quarterly profit.
Almost $1 billion a year
We were making $1 billion a year
in profit.
in profit before tax. There were 30 to 40 million potential households, prospects, have no credit card. So we said, how do we meet the needs of these people who do not qualify for a regular credit card?
So they're lower income people.
So there were lower income people, there were bad credits, there were bankrupts, there were young credits, there were no credits.
They were called unbanked people?
We labeled them unbanked. That was the word came out of Providian, the unbanked market. And then it became like an industry standard word.
And so your business took off.
And our business.
So what you were going after were the people who weren't going to pay their bill off in full.
Are in full, yeah.
Right.
And if we do so, then we will be attracting the profitable segment of the credit card industry.
And your hope was to keep them paying basically in perpetuity, right? You never wanted them to really pay it off.
If they make the minimum payment, yes, then that loan will take almost 20 years to pay back, absolutely.
And you make more money then.
We make more money.
Enticing new customers with gimmicks that were too good to be true.
When you're getting something in the mail several times a week that offers you 0% for 6 months or whatever it may be, they look at the headlines of the solicitation in the mail, they spend 30 seconds on it, and okay, I'm going to be better off at the beginning. They're going to give me something. They're going to give me a 0% rate. People believe what they want to believe.
Providian wasn't alone.
Absolutely not. They may have started it and maybe were the innovators of these bad practices, but they certainly were quickly adopted by everyone else. They started seeing the profit margins, giving away products with no fee and charging interest rates and making a ton of money. And so, hey, let's do it too. And so, you know, it quickly spread throughout the entire industry.
We made it look like it's a giveaway and took it back in the form of, I used to use the word penalty pricing or stealth pricing.
So the competition, increasing competition, led to the use of penalty fees, bigger penalty fees.
Bigger penalty fees.
And you were operating with your penalty fees like everyone else.
But we all had to make up somewhere because everybody had to waive the annual fee to stay competitive. Where do you make your money? So everybody increased the late fees. Everybody started increasing the over limit fees. And when people make the buying decision, they don't look at the penalty fees because they never believe they'll be late. They never believe they'll be over limit, right?
We were having some financial issues. We changed careers. I got an offer for a credit card with a credit line of $500. So I was happy to take that credit card, and that's kind of when it all started. I remember when the balance was about $480 or so, and I was late on a payment. They added on a late fee and increased my interest rate. Well, that, of course, took it above the $500 credit line. And with that, they charged me an over-the-limit fee. That bill had maybe $60, $70 of fees. And every month it was the same thing. Unless I paid all that and more, which of course at the time I couldn't afford to do. There was no way I could ever get ahead.
Blas Cruz says she ended up paying $3,000. That's 5 times more in interest and fees than the original $480 she actually spent on purchases. She was caught by the traps hidden in plain sight. Credit card companies are required by law to explain the rules of the game. It's called disclosure. It's in those solicitations that come in the mail. Even Shailesh Mehta gets them. Open this one for me and tell me what you think. That's from Bank of America. And on the back it says 0% intro APR.
But there is a asterisk or whatever the mark. So I have to now read that footnote. I will have to remove my glasses to read it. So it says, for this, see disclosure summary, insert for details. So now I have to find a disclosure summary, which is the one here. So on the outside, it's a 0% intro APR. In here, it says that my APR is 11.9, 15.9, or 19.9, right? And the APR you receive is determined based on your creditworthiness. So I have no idea which one I'm going to get when they approve me.
So disclosure, you say, doesn't work.
As I said, look how much time it takes for both of us to go through this. I think that your average consumer is not going to be able to translate what the real pricing is.
Now, you put out statements like this for Veridian?
We did, absolutely.
Well, the criticism is that it's exploiting the customer. The fact
it would require a degree of some sort to understand how many different ways I'm paying and what I'm paying. Borrow on a credit card, nobody knows what the real cost is.
And knew that if anything big happened that I'd be in serious trouble. And eventually it did. It really started when I found out I had tonsil cancer.
Bollinger won his battle with cancer, but then he lost his job.
It was just a train wreck. Because of delinquent payment on a totally unrelated debt that I had, one of the credit card companies told me that they were going to increase my rate from like 8.9% up to 19%. When I heard that, I immediately made a phone call and attempted to protest it. Yes, sir. And I didn't understand at all. I didn't understand how something not related to their loan, the money I owed them, would cause them to increase my rates.
Soon after, Don Bollinger's other credit card bank also raised his interest rate. That made even his minimum payments unaffordable and started a downward spiral of missed payments and fees.
It's not fair. It's deceptive.
In my cardholder agreement, I said that if you're delinquent somewhere else, I have a right to increase your rate. Now, you may be delinquent on someone else for whatever reason. Suddenly, my rate will shoot up from 21 to 28%.
Well, that's universal default, it was called.
Universal default. Because they need a more and more stealth pricing, more and more penalty pricing.
The card industry has always been the Wild West, that card issuers held all the cards. They could do anything they want. $39 late fees and $35 over-limit fees and 30% interest rates. And it got crazy. Competition ramped up to such a level that it created an industry that was out of control.
The cops left the streets. There was no one on the beat.
Christopher Dodd of Connecticut is the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee.
Where were the regulators in all of this?
He says that for decades, both Republicans and Democrats voted for deregulation.
And look, I voted for it.
You voted for the deregulation?
Yes, but we were wrong. And the message out there to the financial is go ahead and do what you want. The market will take care of this. The market will protect people.
And that was the dominant ideology of the era, supported not just by Congress and the White House, but by the alphabet soup of bank regulators, like the Federal Reserve, the OCC, and the FDIC, all of whom rarely intervened on behalf of consumers. Some people have said that we had the appearance of regulation, so people thought somebody was watching, but nobody was.
Well, that's a fact. We now know. There was a lot of regulatory power and authority out there, but they walked away from it. It was an intentional decision where they literally knew they had the responsibility and made the conscious decision not to exercise the powers that they had.
The dark secrets in this industry. People who are operating closer to the margin. Those are the people who get trapped Those are the people who produce the enormous revenues in the system.
In a strange way, the banks were charging borrowers higher interest rate in order to give the wealthy people a break. In a strange way, if you look at it, because the people who have money were paying in full, and they were getting the break at the expense of the people who couldn't pay in full.
The stock market yesterday represented more than $1 trillion in losses.
More bad news on the housing front.
Home foreclosures continue to skyrocket.
We are focused on the current economic crisis as primarily a foreclosure and mortgage crisis. What most people don't realize is that when subprime lending was really taking off, it was because people had credit card debt they couldn't afford, and the outlet was to refinance that debt into a subprime mortgage.
Find out how easy refinancing can be. Combine all your high-rate credit card debt into one easy loan. Apply now.
You had consumers refinancing their homes and taking equity out, and they would pay off all their credit cards.
I've got a 4-bedroom house in a great community. Like my car? It's new. How do I do it? I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. Somebody help me.
What was happening is some of these consumers were already running out of rope. This just gave them a little more rope by consolidating it, and then they went back out and, of course, built their credit cards back up.
You know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that if you keep borrowing and borrowing in order to consume now, eventually you crash and burn.
Employers cut another 663,000 jobs last month.
Forecasters have said unemployment will continue to rise.
And today, with double-digit unemployment, those credit card borrowers are increasingly unable to pay.
Nothing but the truth, so I hope you got it.
I do.
Don Bollinger, like millions of others, had refinanced his credit card debt into his mortgage. And so when he lost his job, the extra debt he took on led him into bankruptcy.
That's all the real estate that you have.
Yes. It's been hard, and it still is. For some of us, they just make it impossible to do the right thing. I'm just, some guy that's laid off, live out in the country. But from what I see, it's just greed. And you just struggle and you keep praying that Washington will pass something that's going to reach down and help me, and it never happens.
The troubling practices that credit card companies are engaged in is lengthy and it is disturbing. Consumers are trapped.
Because the banks are one of the most powerful lobbies on the Hill.
The industry got carried away, got arrogant, and they could never be beaten, so they always, when I counted noses, I didn't have the votes.
Senator Richard Shelby is the ranking Republican on the Banking Committee. While he has never been known as an advocate for credit card reform, he's not always sided with the banks. Why hasn't there been credit card legislation to control some of these abusive practices?
Well,
Why did it take a near depression to do that?
Obviously, it's lobbying power.
Lobbying?
It's a powerful lobby group up here. We need to proceed carefully, but we do need to proceed.
It's really hard to get a bill through the U.S. Senate when the industry is pouring money into Washington. It's a very difficult environment to have a reform bill passed.
Nearly every member of the Senate Banking Committee has received large contributions from the financial services industry. And as much as $30 million to the members of your committee over the last election cycle, $7 million to your campaigns.
A lot of good it's done, huh?
Are you saying they're wasting their money giving you campaign contributions?
No, not necessarily. I listen to people. But anybody who thinks they can come in and make a campaign contribution is going to get an outcome based on that is certainly terribly mistaken.
The need to reform credit card practice has never been more important.
Dodd points to the fact that he introduced legislation to take on the credit card industry earlier this year, as did his colleague in the House, Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney.
We can stop these abusive practices.
It had gotten to the point that I couldn't even go to the floor of Congress without hearing stories about credit card abuses, and it was really getting out of hand.
We need to protect our consumers, not...
People are angry out there. Yeah, justifiably angry. I mean, the system failed them. We can't tell the American people that we're going to forget the damage caused by this and leave this system basically as it was. We're not going to do that.
I didn't even know whether it was going to get out of committee. Industry people were coming up, oh, Carolyn, we'll work with you on other things. They were basically saying, we know we've won, you've lost, Everybody was smiles.
In the end, the law made it through Congress. It makes it more difficult for credit card companies to suddenly change interest rates, something that might have saved Don Bollinger and countless others like him from bankruptcy.
It ends the most abusive practices, like any time, any reason, retroactive interest rates increases, practices that have trapped many Americans in debt.
But the real test of change ultimately is whether it makes a difference in the lives of the American people.
By the time the bill was ready for signing, the Republicans had joined in, having won major concessions from the Democrats.
This legislation, while it is significant, probably the most significant in the card industry's history, it still doesn't go far enough to clean up a lot of the practices.
It was an important win that it said the banks may not completely own the legislative process anymore.
But it wasn't really a great win for consumers.
It's a set of very discrete new laws, and the credit industry instantly set to work on how they could run around them. By itself, that set of rules won't change the game.
One battle the banks won was the ability to keep charging whatever interest rate they want.
This credit card bill does not regulate interest rates. The credit card companies are able to impose an interest rate of whatever they want to charge. For instance, a penalty rate on a credit card if you're 60 days late. So here we are in a period of unprecedented unemployment, and everyone who loses their job is going to become 60 days late on their credit card bill. What sense does it make to let someone, when they're down, get stomped on by increasing their credit card interest rate from 9% to 29%? And even under this bill, that would still be permitted.
Another major loophole in the law was an 8-month gap between the president signing the law and when the law would go into effect. Congress gave them 8 months to put it into law.
My original bill had to go to, the original bill I authored said it's effective the day the president signs it. That was my original bill. But I never would have gotten out of committee with that bill. So we had to change the dates on it. I would have loved to have done it earlier than that, but I didn't have the votes to do it.
The banks have used this time to full advantage. They've locked their customers into higher interest rates on existing balances, cut credit lines, and imposed more fees and penalties. Pam Sawinski is a freelance book editor who recently received a letter from her credit card company.
The first letter I got was from Nordstrom Visa. Because you're such a valued customer and we know times are tough, we're making changes to your account. And I thought, hey, this is great. Maybe they're going to lower my interest rate. But the small print on the inside said that they were going to raise my interest rate and that it was going to be retroactive to any existing balance that I had. That alarmed me, but it didn't stop there.
Soon after, the rates went up on her other cards.
I will say that I panicked. I called and asked them why they had raised my rates. What had I done? And they said, we just changed our terms. I was someone who regularly carried a balance, so my minimum payments increased. And as a result, my expenses tended to be way higher than I had expected them to be.
Credit card companies are also lowering their lines of credit. That's what happened to this man, Ben Collins, a home builder who relies on his credit cards to run his small business.
In the middle of a billing cycle, we received a letter that said our line of credit had been reduced from $35,000 down to exactly what was on the card that day. Kitchen sink, drain. The cards were useless at that point, and so the employees that I have all had to basically be issued petty cash, which is very cumbersome. And actually, it's somewhat embarrassing. It's embarrassing when you tell your employee, oh, don't use that credit card. When you're perfectly solvent, they start to think, well, is my paycheck going to be good on Friday?
Please hold, and the next available specialist will be...
Collins called his credit card bank, Bank of America, to protest the cutting of his credit line.
And there's nobody that I can speak with at this point? Okay, well, thank you very much. They're having extremely high call volumes. They can't even take your call right now, so my guess is that The poor little 6 people in that department are busy now. They're the few people who don't have to worry about their jobs at Bank of America. Dead center here.
The new Credit Card Act is not going to help small business owners like Ben Collins. Their cards are excluded from the law.
It's a great oversight because companies like mine are the companies that are going to be the first line of hiring, and the more difficult they make it for us to survive and thrive in this economy, it's disappointing, and it's left a bad taste in my mouth.
A national survey says that more than 50% of Americans have had similar changes to their credit cards of one kind or another. This means that tens of millions of Americans are now facing much higher monthly payments on their bills, which is especially tough in a bad economy.
I'm hanging on, is where I am. I am doing as much as I can to increase my income, but at this time, I feel more precarious than I've ever felt in my life.
The banks have been piling up dramatically. One way to deal with those losses is to try and make more money from everybody else, to put the burden on the people who are still paying. It's really that simple.
Congress understood when they adopted the rule that credit cards would be more difficult to get, limits would be lower, and interest rates would be higher for everyone. But they made the decision that that result was an acceptable consequence, an acceptable trade-off for the sake of the consumers.
The industry is now saying that my bill is causing them to raise interest rates. I mean, who are you kidding? What have they been doing? The terms raising interest rates unfairly, retroactively on balances, changing the rules of the game.
The complaint that led to this legislation is that the credit card industry was abusing its customers.
Well, the vast majority of cardholders manage their credit well, but there was a group that was confused, and that's what Congress and the press were reacting to.
And those people, how many of them are there? Millions? They're confused? I mean, are those the people going bankrupt?
Most of the people who end up in bankruptcy or who end up with credit card problems, the underlying problem isn't the credit card. Most customers managed their credit cards well, understood them, but there was a segment that was confused, and they realized that it had to be addressed.
But Senator Dodd and others have said to us, the industry got arrogant. You started using all these practices that created this problem.
Well, once Congress and the regulators identified the problems, they've addressed it, and the industry's moving on. End of story. They'll redesign their model based on the new rules and based on the new... they're moving on.
Shocking, don't you think? I think that is just plain extortion. I bet after watching that eye-opening video, you're thinking it's about time you cut up all your credit cards into little pieces and flush them down the toilet. Well, I don't blame you, because that's exactly where they belong. I remember how I felt every time I took out my wallet. Just the sight of my credit cards made me feel sick to my stomach. I felt used and betrayed. Think about it. Millions of people have lost their jobs, their homes, had to take low-paying jobs and some reduced work hours, all due to the current struggling and unstable economy. They have been left with no other choice than to turn to their last resort, their credit cards that is, all in an effort to put food on the table, pay bills, and provide shelter for their families and loved ones. But can you blame them? I honestly don't. Maybe you are in that situation and now you're completely buried in credit card debts. Or maybe you're one of those that have been making minimum payments on their credit cards religiously for years, thinking and hoping that it would help cut down on the balance. But when you open your monthly statements each and every month, the balance seems to remain the same, or even worse, gone higher. But for some strange reason, the interest doesn't. Instead, your interest rates keeps going higher and higher and higher. Let me ask you a question. Has it ever crossed your mind that you could be enslaved by your credit card debt as you lay in bed wondering night after night when and if you will ever get out of it? Well, you are not alone. Credit card debt is the third largest source of consumer debt in the United States. Based on an analysis of Federal Reserve statistics and other government data, the average U.S. household credit card debt stands at $15,191, a whopping 1.6% hike from last year. Believe it or not, in total, American consumers owe $854.2 billion in credit card debts. That's a 13.9% increase from last year. Unfortunately, the credit card industry designed the system to be exactly the way it is. That is, get you entrapped so you spend the better part of your life in debt. Statistically, people who make minimum payments on their credit cards every month stay in debt for the rest of their lives. Let me give you a quick example. If you're making minimum payments on a credit card with a $20,000 balance, an interest rate of 18%, it will take you 18 years to pay off that balance in full. And by then, you would have paid $68,000 on that credit card. A jaw-dropping reality, isn't it? But guess what? I got news for you. You don't have to live the rest of your life enslaved by your credit card debts. Not anymore. There is an easy way out. But of course, you gotta be ready to turn things around. It's completely up to you. The ball is on your side of the court. You just gotta decide how it's gonna be played. You either want to continue to feed the banks while you struggle to make your minimum payments month in, month out, or take absolute control of your debt situation and get your life back. It's a choice you have to make. But I can assure you, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I bet you're wondering, who is this guy and what makes him think he could get me out of the hole of debt that I dug myself into? Well, my name is Michael Owoye. I was in the same situation years ago. I was in debt way over my head and could not afford to make the minimum payments on my credit cards after losing my job for over 6 months. And to make matters worse, because I was late on one of my credit cards, my credit limits were reduced, while the balances and interest rates on all my other credit cards just kept on going higher, making it impossible to afford even the minimum payments due. I was scared and frustrated because I didn't know what to do or how I was going to get myself out of the credit card web that I found myself entangled into. I had sleepless nights thinking about ways to put an end to my credit card nightmares and the uncontrollable collection calls and past due notices. At a point, I thought about taking up 2 jobs at the expense of spending time with my family, or just cutting down on my expenses and depriving my kids of the things they want and enjoy doing the most. But I just could not bear the thought of seeing them suffer for my bad judgment and stupid financial decisions. I felt like I was going insane. My debt situation began to push me deeper and deeper into depression, and I began to isolate myself from everyone. Unfortunately, the people that suffered it the most were my family. I turned into a dad and a husband that they had never known, from an always happy and playful dad to a complete stranger. I just wanted to be left alone. I felt like a complete loser. Frustration and anger had taken complete control over me. I honestly thought it was all over. Then one day, it happened. It was like waking up to a new and brighter day. I discovered some secrets about the credit card industry and my credit card debt that changed my life and my debt situation forever. I was able to get out of all my credit card debts and put them all behind me in the shortest amount of time imaginable. After I did, I promised myself that I would never get myself wrapped up in any credit card debts ever again, and that I would help anyone going through the same situation tackle and put their debt situation behind them for good. I have made good on my word thus far. I have since worked in both the financial and debt settlement industry for over 13 years, and within that period, I have helped thousands of my clients negotiate and settle all their unsecured credit cards and personal loans, and I have coached thousands of my clients on how to successfully call their creditors, negotiate and settle all their unsecured credit card debts and loans for up to pennies on the dollar, thereby saving them thousands of dollars. Now it's your turn. It is time to change things around for the best, and I am here to help you accomplish that goal. I know what you're going through because I've been there. It's worse when you don't know what to do or have anyone to turn to. Trust me, you can get yourself out of it. There's an easier, faster, and way cheaper way to make your debt situation disappear. Throwing your hard-earned money away in the trash by hiring one of the so-called debt settlement companies, who will in turn charge thousands of dollars to do a 10-minute job for you, is the biggest mistake you would ever make. Believe me, you are better off doing it by yourself. All you need is the right information, and I am willing to give you that information right here, right now. Don't let anyone try to convince you into thinking otherwise. There are laws set in place to protect you as a consumer. You just need to know where to start and how to get the job done. I'm sure you've heard the good old saying, knowledge is power. To be honest with you, every bit of that saying is true, because when you learn more about a problem and ways to get rid of that problem, your battle over that problem is half won. This is why I've decided to unveil the hidden secrets about the credit card game. Now you can stop living in the dark. It is time to see the light. It is time to know the truth, so the truth can set you free from the bondage of credit card debts. Introducing shocking secrets about debt settlement they don't want you to know. This is epic. It is one of its kind. This is information that has never been shared anywhere before. This 22-page ebook reveals every shocking secret about the credit card game that has been kept hidden from the average consumer for years. It is exclusive, mind-blowing, and filled with so much value. You will be glad you stumbled upon such an amazing opportunity to finally make your debt situation disappear. Because inside this content-packed revelation, you will not only learn how to play the credit card game along with the banks and the lenders, you will learn how to play to win. Inside this book, you will learn about the instruments of debt relief, choices, the credit card game, creating a win-win situation, knowledge, a weapon of empowerment, one call away from freedom, and a whole lot more. By the time you are done uncovering the secrets that help these credit card issuers and lenders make billions of dollars per year, the reality of the endless possibilities awaiting you will blow your mind away. You will never see credit card the same ever again. Guess what? You have a chance right here, right now, to have complete access to this limited and exclusive revelation that could change your life forever for an amazing one-time offer of not $97. Even though I know you will be spending 5 times that amount, guaranteed, if you hire a debt settlement company to settle a credit card with a $20,000 balance for you, as they typically charge between 21 to 23% of the enrolled balance's fees. You won't be paying $47. And I know for a fact that the value of the information you're about to discover in this book far exceeds that amount. And what you will learn from it could change your debt situation and your entire life forever. You're not even going to be paying $27. You can have complete access to this amazing, eye-opening, and life-changing revelation for a one-time unbelievable charge of only $9.95. Scroll down to the bottom of this page and grab your copy now. Listen, I don't know what your debt situation is. Neither do I know how long you've been carrying this weight of debts on your shoulders, allowing it to weigh you down physically, mentally, and emotionally. But I know one thing for sure. The longer you put off tackling and getting rid of your debt situation, the more it affects every areas of your life. Just think about it. The stress it puts on you, your relationships, your marriage, your kids, and your social life. Isn't it time you get your life back and start living a peaceful and worry-free life? Isn't it time you stop screening your calls because you get calls after calls from debt collectors? Isn't it about that time that you start looking forward to picking up your mails from your mailbox because you know the days when all you got was collection and past due notices is finally over? If there's any time to take action and put your debt situation behind you, now is the time. Don't let the chance pass you by. Remember, opportunity comes once in a lifetime. Seize yours right now and change your debt situation for good. You have absolutely nothing to lose and everything, including your sanity, to gain. Here is my personal guarantee to you. If after reading this book, this is not by far the best information about getting you started on getting rid of your debt situation, simply request a refund of the amount you paid within 30 days and I will gladly refund every single penny of the amount invested. 100% risk-free. Make the right decision for you and your family. Make today the day you decide to change your debt situation for good. Life is too short. Don't spend the rest of your life in fear and frustration. Start living the stress-free, happy, healthy, and fulfilled life starting today. No one is going to make the decision for you. You have to decide to step off that hamster wheel and start moving forward. If I didn't find out about the secrets I'm about to share with you, I will still be a slave to my credit card debts today. But I knew deep down inside me something had to change. I knew I had to step out of the box. I knew I had to break the chains somehow. And the first step was knowing the roots of my problem. When I did, things were never the same again. Things took turns for the best. Scroll down this page and get instant access to this life-changing information right now. You will be glad you did. There's a better life waiting for you on the other side. It's a debt-free life. I hope I'll see you there.